I'm going to be trying to give a little bit of a different flavor to where we see the challenges. We had a great session this morning on what people are actually doing. And one of the confusing areas is that everybody's talking about different domains. And I was going to try and put a little bit of perspective on the kinds of domains we're going to need to deal with. And I think the real message is that multi-domain is something you need to plan for. We've been wrestling for so long, we're just trying to do it for our own network or our own transport system, that now we have to really think about how that works for different domains. And I think we'll be doing several sessions that describe enterprise and some of the carrier SDN capabilities, and then we'll be wrapping up with a Netcracker session that will bring it back to the hybrid domain management problem. So let me just say that I think it's really important to remember what motivates all this is the network change. And there are three big ones that I wanted to highlight. The convergence of networks is changing boundaries, and I'll talk more about what those are, and let's try to put together a list of what all those different domains might be. The renewed focus on enterprise is itself a huge area that is changing, again, both domains, but also the functionality that's required and the user integration and interaction that's required. And then finally, my favorite topic, which I do a lot of work on, wireless, but headnets are going to be everywhere. But what are the implications for automation and operations? And in particular, the hybrid orchestration is going to be really essential. And then most importantly, three factors that are going to change automation. And I think we talk about automation as it was some monolithic thing. And I think from some of the PCCW examples of just automate the routine stuff, which includes just checking your inventory, shipping stuff, sure, that's probably the lowest end of traditional automation. But let's talk about the network domains of what I call, of the complexity, diversity and dynamicity of networks is changing all the different ways we're going to have to automate. And we're going to have to automate for what I call real-time internet time and human time, are very, very different types of automation. This, just quickly, I'm not going to go through this, is a chart I've been putting up at every Layer 1, 2, 3 conference where I've been in an operations session. The good news is the only things that I've changed on this are the dates on the bottom. But we, I think, are finally coming out of the point where the OSS systems were going to be the showstopper for the networks. We're now moving into the period of end-to-end service orchestration, open service APIs, and all of the types of functionality that are really going to change the way services are onboarded, provisioned, activated. And so we're seeing both network and service operations changing. And I'm pleased to say that we put that list of boxes together in 2014, and it's pretty much the same. So let's look at why we are driving towards the need to get all this functionality. And I just put together here, you've heard about all of these pieces through the conference, but let's just remember all the different pieces of domain diversity we're going to have to deal with. Optical, cable, and wireless, 3 transport networks at least, and copper, actually, I put that. Fixed, ubiquitous, and highly mobile. Very important, I think, going forward to start distinguishing things that move occasionally or maybe everywhere, but don't move a lot, but as well as the truly mobile, high-performance, low-latency handover. Global roaming, and I put IPX in there, but that's more to remind you of how it's done. We're going to be roaming not just people, but things, and more importantly, services that go with people. So anything that you can do, it will be done anywhere. And this brings into a lot of the legacy roaming mechanisms will be used to roam content as well as users. So think about a roaming network as being a universal access cloud on a global basis. And the issue of global cross-carrier boundaries, I think we have a couple of speakers who will be talking about that. And you heard some of that this morning. Virtualization everywhere, but everybody's got a legacy network and they aren't going to throw it away. And I'm not going to, this session won't get into it, but I'm sure everyone's aware that right now we deal with those as separate domains. And there's a company here that's demonstrating how you can actually not just deal with them as interworking domains, but can we actually get a virtual VNF from a legacy network and put it in the middle of a service function chain? That's where we want to be in dynamic flow management with a service that can actually use functions from both legacy But again, they have to be different domains. They've probably got different domain controllers. They've probably got different orchestrators. And we have to have orchestrators that can share information. We don't want to go to the orchestrator of orchestrators model, thank you very much. Those have to be peer domains. Mass market retail, from a market point of view, we've got a mass market retail, the conventional consumer market. We got private enterprise, which was the old private network market, which is becoming a big deal now. The over-the-top cloud enablers are going to be customers, so they've got a domain that we got to look after as users, improving and enhancing what they do. And finally, the wholesale market that's going to take off big time, I believe, as one carrier starts to wholesale services they've optimized to another carrier, as well as, obviously, to first tier one carriers to second and third tier. And then we got a whole slew of vertical markets. Smart cities, proving to be a good place of anchor test services. Public safety, utilities, mining, railways. All of these are domains in a sense. And then network slicing, which has often been used as the proxy for domains, but in particular, there will need to be very different service qualities for domains like IoT, Internet of Things, connected cars, augmented reality. I didn't put virtual reality down there. I think that's going to only be very, very localized, and probably the last 20 feet between the user and the wireless connection. I won't go through all of these, but again, enterprise changes everything. Global multinational services, we're seeing, how can I run a global enterprise with a seamless VPN that crosses carrier boundaries? I can't do it with MPLS tunnels unless I do something that's non-standard, and I can't do it easily with layer 2 VPNs that don't scale beyond a million, and I can't do it with VLANs that don't scale beyond a million addresses. So I've got some issues of how do I do global networking. I've also got some issues of how do I guarantee service quality. And users are very sensitive to service quality in the enterprise space. They're used to SLAs on the fixed network. They want the same from the mobile network. They want end-to-end. They don't care what the transport is. Customer experience management. Suddenly I have to worry not just how it looks to the network. I have to look at how it looks to the customer. And I need to give the customer a portal. You heard this morning a very good point made by Verizon that if you can get the customer pull for the operations capabilities, you are going to get movement fast. And giving one of the cleverest things Verizon has done is being one of the first to offer a true, what they call it, the customer service designer, service manager, with a portal for the customer. Because it turns out the CIOs in the enterprise care more about control than they do about saving money. And if you give them power and control, they'll be very happy with their service provider. And then I won't go in again. We all know the SDN service enablers, services that are going to be enabled. Wireless headnets, I don't have to tell you what a mess we're headed for. We've got 2G's not going anywhere. It's going to stay longer than 3G in many countries. 4G LTE just still coming in most countries. We only just passed the number of LTE subscribers globally over the sum of all previous ones. LTE Advanced Pro is going to be a little different. 4.5G is going to come before 5G. 4.9G is coming from some people. And then finally we'll have 5G, and they're going to be flavors of that, stage 1, stage 2, and lots of flavors of services. And we've got macro, metro, small cell domains. We've got outdoor and in-building domains. We've got diverse backhaul domains, copper, optical, microwave, and then 5G as a backhaul network. So let's understand that diversity is going to be the next big problem in the OSS world. And so as you hear each of these speakers talk about their specific domain successes and maybe crossing domains occasionally, we're going to have to do a lot more of that. So what does that mean for automation? Is really we're looking at increased complexity, diversity of domains with very different requirements, and then what I call dynamicity, in that people will be moving very rapidly between one or the other. Traffic will be changing very rapidly between those domains. So we need policy mechanisms to reallocate resources across domains. So just to give you one fun slide at the end, I put together a slide. This is actually also from 2014. And it took a lot of hours, and I'm not sure it's perfect, but it gives you the idea. When we talk about automation, let's talk about what we're automating. And it's very different to automate the real-time events, which are shown in the red box on the left, And they go from, I showed it as being less than 1 microsecond. We're down in the nanoseconds now. Those have to be processed really, really fast. And maybe up to 10 milliseconds, but that's slow. Probably 3 milliseconds is the max. In the middle, we have what most of the network stuff does, between the 10 millisecond and I put 10 seconds. It's probably 10 milliseconds and 100 to 300 milliseconds is probably where most network operations stuff needs to be. And then over on the right, we have the stuff that is more like traditional human use on the internet, where I can wait a few minutes if necessary, or I can retry the packets. And historically, by the way, I would probably redraw this now, because some of the BSS functions are real-time rate changes or real-time user activation on bandwidth changes that can actually happen, certainly in the multi-second time frame, if not in the millisecond time frame. So even what we thought of as being slow admin processes is now going to move into the other domain. But useful to think about these in terms of the different performance requirements. On the left, I can't do it manually. I never could. The network has to have a policy. I can detect it, and then I have to fix things before I even know there was a problem, because by the time I see the problem, it's gone, or the problem has escalated, either way. And so I have to have automated mechanisms. In the middle, maybe I see it, maybe I can redirect traffic, maybe I can modify the load management algorithm. That's what I'm used to doing. But the reality is, now I have to have a learning system that learns what I do. I would need a human input. I can run open loop, but I need to then develop algorithms to then emulate what has been done traditionally by people. And then over on the right, I need to rethink how the human processes flow, both for the user processes are often a big part of that. And that's probably one area where the cloud guys have probably not been looked at enough, of how do they really track and provision customers the way they like to be provisioned. I love Google. I've got Google trained to do the research that it knows. I know that myself and a competing research analyst will get very different results on Google. I've got Google trained to do what I need it to do. And we need to look at how they do the learning algorithms, and it is really clever. So we need systems that learn how users like to be dealt with, as well as how the network likes to deal with them. So that's just my 2 cents worth, but let's look for hybrid diversity and all the complexity that we're going to see. You ain't seen nothing yet.